The most disturbing aspect of this mystery isn't the unexplained deaths. It's the cryptic note they left behind suggesting they knew exactly what was going to happen to them. This video contains content that some viewers may find unsettling. Before we delve into this bizarre case, if you're fascinated by unexplained deaths and mysterious circumstances, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel to join us for more strange and disturbing true stories 2 to 3 times every week. Now let's begin. August 20th, 1966. A teenage boy was flying a kite on Vintém Hill near Niterói, a city across the bay from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. The hill offered spectacular views of the surrounding landscape, making it a popular spot for locals. But what the boy discovered that day would transform this scenic location into the setting for one of Brazil's most enduring mysteries. As the teenager wandered across the hilltop, he spotted something unusual: 2 men lying side by side on the ground. At first, he thought they might be sleeping, but as he approached, he realized something was terribly wrong. The men were completely still, dressed in formal suits and ties despite the casual setting. Most bizarrely, each wore a strange lead mask covering their eyes, similar to the kind used for protection against radiation, but cruder, as if homemade. The boy ran to alert authorities, and thus began the strange case that would come to be known as the Lead Masks of Vintém Hill. Police quickly identified the deceased as Manuel Pereira de Cruz, 32, and Miguel José Viana, 34. Both were electronic technicians from Campos dos Goitacazes, a town about 200 kilometers northeast of Rio de Janeiro. Friends and family described them as hardworking, responsible men with no history of erratic behavior or mental health issues. They were not only colleagues, but close friends who shared an intense interest in electronics and scientific experimentation. The initial investigation revealed that on August 17th, 3 days before their bodies were discovered, Cruz and Viano had told their families they needed to buy supplies for work and would be back the same evening. They purchased waterproof coats from a shop in Campos, an odd choice as the weather forecast showed clear skies. They also withdrew a significant amount of money, equivalent to about 1 month's salary. The men then boarded a bus to Niterói, arriving at 2:30 p.m. A waitress at a local bar later reported serving them and noted that Viano appeared to be checking his watch frequently, as if waiting for a specific time. The waitress was likely one of the last people to see them alive. From the bar, they apparently made their way to Vintém Hill, carrying a bottle of water, the waterproof coats, and a mysterious notebook. When police examined the bodies, they found no obvious signs of violence, struggle, or trauma. There were no bullet wounds, no stab marks, no indications of a fight. The men's suits were immaculate except for being wet from exposure to the elements. The lead masks covering their eyes were crudely made, fashioned from sheets of lead with no holes for vision, designed not for seeing through, but for blocking something out. But it was the notebook found with them that added the most disturbing element to the case. Inside, written in Portuguese, was a cryptic set of instructions. 1630B at the specified location. 1830 swallow capsules. After effect, protect metals weight for signal mass. Alongside these instructions were several complex physics formulas and diagrams that investigators couldn't immediately decipher. The notebook suggested that whatever Cruz and Viana were doing on that hilltop was planned, methodical, and involved some kind of timed procedure. Unfortunately, the investigation was hampered by critical errors from the beginning. The bodies were discovered on a Saturday, but due to bureaucratic delays, the coroner didn't arrive until Sunday. By then, a heavy rain had fallen, potentially washing away evidence. Even more damaging to the investigation, the coroner failed to conduct immediate toxicology tests. By the time authorities decided to check for poison several weeks later, the men's organs were too decomposed to yield reliable results. As news of the strange death spread, investigators began piecing together a clearer picture of Cruz and Viana's activities in the months leading up to their deaths. Friends and family revealed that the 2 men had been conducting electrical experiments in a makeshift laboratory they had set up. They were particularly interested in building devices related to communication and had mentioned attempting to contact beings from other dimensions or planets. One colleague reported that Cruz and Viano had been part of a group interested in spiritualism and scientific experiments aimed at contacting supernatural entities. They had apparently constructed a small radio transmitter that they believed could be used to communicate with spirits or extraterrestrial beings. The colleague also mentioned that the two had previously made at least one other trip to isolated locations for their experiments. The lead masks themselves became a central focus of the investigation. Why would two men wear such items, especially ones that completely blocked their vision? Experts noted that lead is used as protection against radiation, suggesting the men might have been expecting some kind of radioactive event or experiment. Others pointed out that in certain esoteric practices, lead is believed to block psychic energies or protect the wearer during spiritual experiences. The cryptic note found in their notebook, 1630B at the specified location. 1830 swallow capsules, after effect protect metal's weight for signal mask, seemed to outline a specific procedure. The mention of swallow capsules strongly suggested that Cruz and Viano had ingested something, possibly a drug or poison. But what substances were in these capsules, and what signal were they waiting for? Several theories emerged to explain the bizarre deaths. The most straightforward was that Cruz and Viano had committed suicide as part of a spiritual or scientific experiment. The note's reference to swallowing capsules could indicate they had taken poison, believing it would allow them to transcend to another dimension or make contact with extraterrestrial beings. This theory is supported by the methodical nature of their preparations and a lack of signs of struggle. However, friends and family vehemently rejected the suicide theory. Both men were described as happy, stable individuals with no history of depression or suicidal ideation. Cruz had recently become a father and was excited about his future. Viano was engaged to be married. Neither had shown any signs of the kind of distress that typically precedes suicide. Another theory suggested that Cruz and Viano were murdered, possibly because they had witnessed something they shouldn't have or had become involved with dangerous individuals. Proponents of this theory point to the missing money the men had withdrawn before their trip. It was never found with their bodies. However, the lack of signs of violence or struggle makes this theory problematic, unless the men were poisoned by someone they trusted. Some investigators proposed that Cruz and Viano might have been victims of a scam or cult. Perhaps they had been convinced by a charismatic leader or con artist that they could achieve spiritual enlightenment or contact aliens by following specific procedures, including ingesting substances that turn out to be lethal. The carefully written instructions could have been provided by such an individual. Perhaps the most intriguing theory, and the one that has captured public imagination, is that Cruz and Viano were amateur scientists conducting an experiment that went tragically wrong. Their background in electronics, combined with their interest in alternative physics and communication with other dimensions, suggests they might have been attempting something they believed was scientifically grounded, albeit well outside mainstream science. Some ufologists and paranormal researchers have suggested that the men were attempting to create conditions for a close encounter with extraterrestrial beings. The lead masks, in this theory, were protection against radiation or intense light they expected to experience during this encounter. The capsules might have contained hallucinogenic substances they believed would enhance their ability to perceive or communicate with these entities. In the decades since the incident, the lead mask case has become one of Brazil's most enduring mysteries, inspiring books, documentaries, and countless discussions among those interested in unexplained deaths. The case has been compared to other strange incidents involving apparent ritual deaths or disappearances, such as the Heaven's Gate mass suicide of 1997, where members of a UFO religious cult took their own lives believing they would board an alien spacecraft. What makes the lead mask case particularly disturbing is the combination of meticulous planning evidenced by the note and the apparent willingness of two otherwise rational men to participate in something so dangerous. Cruz and Viano were not described as particularly gullible or prone to extreme beliefs. They were skilled technicians with a solid understanding of electronics and physics. What could have convinced them to don lead masks and swallow capsules on a remote hilltop? The Brazilian authorities eventually closed the case without reaching a definitive conclusion. The official cause of death was listed as undetermined, a frustratingly vague designation that has allowed speculation to flourish. In the absence of concrete answers, the mystery has only deepened with time. Today, Vintém Hill continues to attract curious visitors drawn by the strange story of the two technicians and their lead masks. Some come hoping to understand what Cruz and Viano might have experienced on that August day in 1966. Others are simply fascinated by a mystery that seems to defy rational explanation. Perhaps what makes the lead mask case so compelling is that it sits at the intersection of science and the supernatural. Cruz and Viano were men of science, yet they appear to be reaching for something beyond the material world. Their deaths remind us of the dangerous allure of the unknown and the lengths to which some will go to pierce the veil between the world we know and the worlds we can only imagine. In the end, we may never know what Manuel Pereira de Cruz and Miguel José Viano were seeking on Vintém Hill, or what they believed they would find there. Their strange deaths, like the cryptic note they left behind, remain an enduring enigma. A reminder that sometimes the most disturbing mysteries are not those without answers, but those where the answers seem just beyond our grasp.